Maybe a story will cheer you up. It's called The Ugly Barnacle. Once there was an ugly barnacle. He was so ugly that everyone died. The end.
That didn't help at all.
Welcome, everybody, to Would You Like to Continue, an anthology episodic podcast series with your host, Brandon Mercado. I'm joking, Brandon Mercado. But anyway, Waffle, I want you guys to give a nice, smooth welcome to one of, if not the homie, the writer, the photographer, the man, the myth, the legend, Jose Rodriguez. Also was my best man.
Was not ready for all of that titles. I was like caught off guard. I'm humbled. Thank you so much. How's everybody doing today? Granted, it's just us. Just you and me.
I'm doing good. How are you?
You know, not too shabby. Saturday, it's pretty beautiful outside. Partly cloudy, 40% chance of rain. Can't complain.
Bet. All right, J-Rod, so how are you feeling on a scale from 1 to 10?
1 to 10? Solid 9. I'm suffering from a slight food coma, but, Burger King's Bacon King Jr., not, I'm not sponsored by them by any chance. I mean, if they're listening. But no, I'm feeling pretty good. How about yourself, man?
Pretty good. Again, I think like an 8 or 9 for me. Just chilling.
Gotcha.
All right, man. So let's jump right into this. I got a what's the word? I don't know what the word is. Like a synonymous for group, but it sounds fancier than group. Makes you sound smarter.
I'm right now illiterate. I get what you're saying. I just don't know the word for it. So I got a bunch of questions. Let's just go with a bunch of questions.
got a bunch of questions.
Oh, alrighty. Let's go.
All right. So what got you into poetry, man?
Easy. It was like freshman year of high school. It was 9th grade. We had to do, it was language arts, and we had an assignment. We had to write poetry. I was like, oh, yay, roses are red, violets are blue, that kind of stuff. But no, we did a poem about something. I forgot what. And it actually challenged me to flex my creative abilities, and I did it. And I was like, wow, okay, this is something. Then one day out of boredom, and obviously in high school, freshman year, we all have that secret crush. I decided, you know what, I'm going to write a poem for her. But I never sent it to her, never let her see it. Actually, I lied. I did later let her see it, but I said it was for someone else. Yeah, good times. But yeah, no, high school freshman year was when I got into poetry, and since then I've just been writing.
Gotcha. That's cool, bro. I didn't expect that. Being your best man, I feel like a failure now that I'm learning this right now.
Listen, man. I'm a very private person. They call me the Batman of the group. They call me secluded or hermit.
I just imagine like a combination of hermit Batman.
Bat signal goes up, but he never comes out. He's just staying in.
Gordon, why do we even try?
Okay. Alfred, what's the point?
It's funnier because I see it in my head.
Yeah, you see some dude like in a robe and like the Batman mask on. He says, "Why do we try?"
All right, what books and poems would you recommend to those listening, and why? What books and poems would you recommend to those listening, and why?
Books and poems. I don't really know. Like, I'm not good with names of books, but my favorite poets are R.M. Drake, R.H. Sin. Those are like top 2. And then I'm not gonna lie to you, in the day of social media, I follow a lot of poetry pages on Instagram. And you go from one poem page, they shout out someone else, so then you just dive deep into this poetry madness hole on Instagram and stuff like that. I do recommend a book though, Tuesdays with Morrie. It's very good literature, very very insightful. It's about an old man. He's about to die, but he somehow has the most brightest outlook on death you'll ever see. And A Monster Calls, very good story, very passionate. I loved it. It's sad, so if people are very emotional and you cry over sad things, then this one will make you cry. I bought the book solely because I wanted to read it before I saw the movie. Bought the movie, really good, love it.
Nice. All right. So how do you go about writing poetry? So like you said, you don't really remember so much of the books, but I guess more you remember the emotion, right? How it made you feel. Mm-hmm. And does that ever like spark inspiration for you? And does that like how does that, if it does, lead you into your writing process?
Usually when I write, it's more so based off two things: my personal experience and the experience I see of others. So let's say, for example, I'm going through a tough time, right? I'll write about it. Or if I see someone going through a rough time and they're talking to me, I'll never show it to anybody unless the person who's talking to me feels comfortable with. But I write my stories, or not stories, but poetry, based off the emotions of others. You know, I try to create a story. I try to invoke emotion. I try my best to make people put themselves in that position and feel what another person would feel, or feel what I would feel, you know. And over the years I've gotten better. Over the years I've found my style of writing, which helps me deliver the message that I'm trying to convey and help me deliver the emotions that I'm trying to convey. And I utilize that to help my writing. And I learn, you know. I have a friend who, she lives in New York, but she's also a writer, phenomenal writer, and she's going to school for English. So I'll send it to her. Hey, is this good? What needs to be cleaned up on? You know, and she'll tell me, this is good. This is what needs to be worked on. I'll rework it, and then it's just it helps me grow. You know, never be afraid to admit that you need help. You know,
You're just getting more and more interesting for me, man.
you know, like I said, Hermit Batman.
Hermit Batman. How do you overcome writer's block?
Oh man. Not very well, man. Let me tell you, man. It takes a while, but it's horrible because once I have a writer's block, I stop writing for like weeks, sometimes even months. I'm not gonna lie to you, and it's hard to overcome that because, like, one, either there's so much in life going on, I can't even grasp my own emotions, so it's like, you know, it's hard to focus on one thing, and two, if I try to write, which currently I'm like in the process of writing something, it's in the very beginning, but it's tough. So I take a step back. I breathe. I try to solve what's going on in my life. I try to focus on the things that I need to focus on to come back with a clear mind. You know, it also helps to, you know, look at the other poems on Instagram or pick up a book and read a couple poems and be like, man, you know, that's good. I would like to make my own version of this story, or I would like to invoke this emotion. So it's basically about taking back, not overwhelming yourself, because trust me, once you hit that writer's block, once you hit that wall, the anxiety starts to come in, then you start to think, oh my god, like, I'm not good, like this is going to be a horrible piece of writing, I don't want this is going to suck. So just take a step back, breathe, you know, it's not the end of the world, and come back with clear eyes and fresh mind.
All right, cool. You kind of mentioned already that you have a friend that you reach out to get advice and assistance with your poetry. Mm-hmm. So are you part of any like poetry groups, or is there apps that you use to assist you with your writer's block or assist you with your writing process?
Negative. I'm a Hermit Batman all the way. Nah, you know, I reach out to her more so because she writes as well, you know. She's a very phenomenal writer. Leia, if you're listening, you know, shout out to you. Thank you. But, you know, she's a phenomenal writer, you know. So I don't really use any apps to help me write. I'm not a part of a group. I would like to, like, if I could find a group, sure. There was a place in Orlando that used to be Dandelions, and every Tuesday night they'd have poetry night. So it was pretty cool. I went a couple times, and, you know, it was pretty cool. You would see some people, and when they would write, it would just inspire you. Like, wow, you know, like how they're writing. You know, I went with I believe I went with a coworker. Yeah, I went with a coworker. His name is Joey. He told me to shout him out on this podcast. So, right, Joey, if you're listening, hey man, shout out to you, buddy. But yeah, we went to Dandelions, and he even said, you know, like there were some poets that it was like, wow, you know, like some good messages. It's really good stuff. So I would basically use that to, like, I guess that was kind of like the group for like a little bit there. COVID-19 came and messed that all up. So yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't mind, you know, being a part of a group of poets, and we just, you know, like reach out, send each other stuff, you know, be like, hey, you know, this is what I wrote. Oh man, that's good. Here, I think you can, like, you know, fix it up on this or clean it up on this. So that'd be cool. That's something I'll look forward into.
Nice. So you mentioned earlier about your friend Leia, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. That she's a good writer, and so that led me thinking. Okay, so how, in your perspective or your definition, how would you view, like, what is good writing in your eyes, Jose? So what is good writing in your perspective?
Good writing, it's hard because writing, it's words. It's not pictures. It's not TV show or movie. Nothing. You have to create a world. You have to create characters and emotions, simply with words. And in order to determine what is good writing, it has to create such beautiful and powerful things that a reader can grasp onto the minute they read the words. Most people would grasp onto a catchy headliner because it invoked something. It invoked curiosity and invoked, what does that mean? I wonder what the story is about. That's what, for me, good writing is. You have to create a world. You have to create emotions, and it's tough because nowadays people, they read something for 5 seconds, get bored, scroll up. So it's difficult to keep someone's attention nowadays. So good writing is, one, keeps your attention. Two, you create emotions, you create worlds, you create characters, and you put the reader in your eyes, in your position. You put them in that place when you were feeling what you wrote, and that's what helped create just phenomenal writing.
I would agree with you. I totally agree. Like, I see, it's like you said, so it's words, and so words are different. And even like the visual of the words, like when I'm on Instagram or I'm like writing something on like the story, like you try to get the word placement right. Like It's like boxy or like more like a triangle as the words kind of go down. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about this until the moment of doing it. And I believe speaking is, even though it's words, it's still different from writing. Because writing is symbols, it's script, and so it's not visual in the sense of movies or shows or video games, but it's visual in the sense of, like, I don't know, I feel like it's a weird sense, it's just something, it's different.
More imaginative, it's more like you have to use your mind and use your imagination to see, it's, if you get a script, right, for directors, when they write a script, they see it in their mind, and they try to write it out best as they can onto paper. So then that way, producers and screenwriters, all of that, can see it themselves and put it onto the big screen. So that's why writing is such a big thing nowadays, because, without writing, we wouldn't have movies. We probably wouldn't have good movies, good shows. Writing, it's essential. It helps create, not create, but rather it helps sustain the creativity, in life. So yeah.
No, I would totally agree with that. Okay, so let's transition over. Let's talk about your photography. So you take pictures, you buy yourself a camera, you got some little pieces of equipment that I've seen you use, like the glass ball and stuff, and we've talked a little bit about it before. And so if we look at your Instagram, if you want to plug it in right now,
at Joselito_4296. That is JOSELITO_4296.
There you go. So you take shots, right? And the shots that you take are not of the alcohol kind that I'm referring to. When I said it, I saw the words through, like I didn't see pictures at all.
When you're throwing shots, it's like, yeah, that Jaeger, man, let me tell you.
Oh gosh. Anyways, so your Instagram, you have a lot of pictures of scenery and things like that, which we'll tap into some more. But I want to ask a simple question: what got you into photography?
The sky. Honestly, it was always, back in like high school, anytime I would see the clouds and the sky look nice, I would take a picture on my Snapchat and post that, And so my mother, she was like, oh, you're always taking pictures of the sky. You're always taking pictures of the sky. I was like, well, the sky is beautiful. The sky is never the same twice. So, I wanted to take a picture of it. Then years later, I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy a camera. I bought a point and shoot, not to be confused with a DSLR, digital camera, with interchangeable lenses. Point and shoot is just you point your camera, you shoot, and that's it. DSLRs are when you take the lenses off, adapt lenses, different lenses and stuff like that. So I bought a point and shoot, took a couple photos there, and I said, these are great, but I feel like I can do better with a DSLR. Bought the DSLR, took pictures. I was not ready. I should have better prepared myself for it. I'm not going to lie to you, because it's a different machinery. It's different lighting exposures and compositions. I wasn't ready. And it took me a while with that camera. It was at a point where I stopped taking photos for a while because I wasn't happy with how they were turning out. I wasn't happy with learning, and our best friend, Sandesh, shout out to you. He took the time to teach me. He bought a camera too, and his camera, far powerful than mine. But he took the time to be like, listen, it's not the camera that, you take a picture with, but it's how you utilize that camera. So he helped me. We took lessons. I tried to edit one photo one night, late at night. I couldn't do it. It was too blurry, too grainy. It wasn't looking right. Anxiety attack hit me. I was like, oh God. I had a bad panic attack. I was ready to give up photography. Took a step back. Like I said, take a step back. Breathe. Go in with fresh eyes. I told myself I'm going to learn how to be a better photographer. Watched some videos. Went out and took some photos on my own. And next thing you know, we traveled a little bit. Went to Venice Beach, which is 2.5 hours away. Not to be confused with Venice Beach, California. It's more so Venice Beach, Florida. Yeah, we went out there. We took photos of the beach at sunset. Literally drove 2.5 hours for sunset photos to then drive 2.5 hours back.
Dedication.
Yep, and you do anything for the shot. And took photos, and it was you can see them on my Instagram. It was at the pier, and it was just nice. It was beautiful. I had so many people say like, "Wow, these are amazing photos. Wow, this is crisp. Wow, this is so amazing and beautiful." And it was at that point, that shoot itself was when I realized, wow, I think I found my style as a photographer. I think I know what kind of photographer I want to be, which is a landscape photographer. Landscape being land, cityscape, which is of the city. Take pictures of nature, not so much people. I'm not the best at portrait photography. I'm willing to learn. I'm gonna learn. But yeah, that's it all started with an Android phone, Snapchat with a crappy camera quality, and a boy with a dream. That's how photography started.
It's crazy that you mentioned about your admiration for the sky. It's crazy how you mentioned your admiration for the sky, because I remember your Instagram name, you're trying to find one that had sky in it or whatever, and you went to different, like, what was like Jose So Fly or like
JR So Fly.
Yeah, JR So Fly. Like, yeah, you're trying out different things to go with it, which is really cool, because one thing that I was at a kids ministry conference in Texas before COVID went crazy, literally like right when it got bad, and for America, sorry. But yeah, so anyways, while I was at Texas at the kids ministry conference, there was this guy named David Boyd, and Boyd, this phenomenal kids ministry missionary, he was preaching, and it was just great stuff, and he was talking about how God's an architect and just how he was set things up, and he did a funny little skit about how his him and his wife got set up. And as he was talking, he gave everyone these cool little architect blueprint papers, which I fidget a lot, so I made a ninja star out of mine. and there's some deeper stuff behind that, but I'll say that for another episode. So with that being said, he was talking about, again, God being an architect and how he sets things up throughout your life. And it's cool how you looked at the sky constantly, right? Because where you live, you know, there's a great view of the sky, and there's that lake right next to it. You're at a good spot to admire nature. Mm-hmm. And so I can see God setting you up and setting your eye up, right, for the whole photography of landscape, right, to be a landscape photographer. Yeah. And so, again, you were trying to find your name, and I believe that goes with our identity. I feel like there are certain talents and hobbies, and this is why I like interviewing people like you, because I feel like our talents and hobbies give us a better understanding of who we are, right? And with these talents and hobbies, they reveal where God's calling us and directing us, and we just got to be careful that we use it for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons, because there is an enemy out there, and there's even our flesh and just different stuff that wants to manipulate it and use it for the wrong, right? Use it in a way where it's more self-destructive, more selfish, and just, to be honest, limiting the potential that we have. Like, if you worked with someone and you only took the shots they wanted you to take, you know, it sometimes is good, but it can also be very limiting. And you just have the freedom to just, you know, even just access to everything. So easy to Google a YouTube video to learn how to get better at your art, photography, whatever. And then same thing with even like doing research on the right camera, right? Yeah. But you were blessed enough to have someone like Sandesh who's willing to, you know, like, hey, Rose, do this together as a community, you know, like, let's figure this out together. And you were able, through trial and error and doing those 2.5 hour drives, to uncover what was the best, you know, shot that fit you. That answered actually my next question, which was, what was your style? And you said it was landscape. So another question I got for you involving your photography, I mentioned earlier about the glass ball. And again, if you look at Jose's Instagram, you can see him using that glass ball, crystal ball, whatever the name is for it. Do you plan on using any other items to kind of enhance your shots, you know, like, or how did you even come about that? Like, just talk about that.
There are a lot of instruments to use during photography. There's a lot of tools you can use. You know, a lot. I bought a macro lens, which is a macro micro lens, which is perfect for the very up close, very detailed shots. You know, if raindrops on a windowsill, you want to take a crisp picture of that. The micro macro lens is the way to go. The lens ball I thought was I saw it on an Instagram post, and I saw it and I was like, wow, you know, I want that. I bought one, and it's so cool how it just inverts the world, where through the lens balls, everything is upside down. And so I figured I'm going to be using this for a lot of my shots, because this is just it. You look, you scroll, you see that picture on your feed. You can be looking through your Instagram for hours, and you'll scroll and you'll see Kim Kardashian's post and Travis Scott's post or whatever, but then you see a lens ball in the middle, and it's just like, wow, you know, like it captures your eyes for a minute. You're like, oh, okay, and then it forces you to look and analyze that picture, and it's like, wow, you know. So there are there's other tools that you use for photography. A tripod, which I learned through trial and error really bad. I met a couple photographers in the game, local photographers, and there was one night, it was in January, and it was it's probably the first or second picture on my Instagram page, but it's of the blood moon, and it was very, 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 very cold that night. You know, it was super freezing that night. I didn't have a tripod, so I asked if I could borrow Sandish's. His was very not well prepared to carry the weight of mine. His camera is a lot lighter than my camera, so when I put my camera on his tripod, the tripod would not stand at all. It would fall. It would tip over. Then it was windy, so I needed something to weigh the tripod down. I didn't have a camera bag at the time, so everything was just not working well. So I had to use like my car's. There was a bag that I had in my car that carried the jump start cables. I had to use that. I had to use something else. I had to like dig it into the ground. I had to like angle it very high, and it was hell. But I got the shot, and probably one of my most, if not the most liked photo on my Instagram. But yeah, it was one of my most liked photos on Instagram, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle to get it, but you know, it wouldn't be possible without a tripod. So that's why, you know, these tools are essential for photography, because anything to help enhance the shot, anything that can help you get the vision that you have in your head, capture it and upload it and edit it, then you got to go out and get it. And that's what the lens ball is. That's what the tripod is. And as more stuff comes out, I'm sure I'll find it. I'll put money into it and hopefully go from there.
Nice. It's crazy. Like, two of your photos that were, I guess, pinnacle, right, to your style, to who you are as a photographer, you had to work for them. You had to really, really work for them. And it's like, I asked you about writer's block, but it seems like, you know, like photographer's block is also a thing, right?
Yeah, it's so easy to exhaust yourself when it comes to writing, when it comes to photography. That's why it's good to take these creative hiatuses every once in a while. You know, let the creative juice flow, because if not, then you're just burning yourself out, and that will do you no justice whatsoever. That will only induce more anxiety for not getting the poem that you wanted, the picture that you wanted to take. It does not help you. So that's why it's good to take these creative hiatuses, because things start to fall apart, and when they fall apart, to everyone, it always seems like it's the end of the world. Like, it's always going to be hard. Plus, you're your hardest critic. You know, you can tell me my shot is great. You can tell me my photo's the best photo you ever seen. But in my head, I'm my toughest critic. I'm like, I could have done better. It's okay. It's not the best. You know, so life lesson.
Life lesson 285 from Hermit Batman. You mentioned earlier about your mom. You mentioned how she kind of pushed you with the whole photo stuff. She's like, why are you always taking a picture of the sky, right? Would you say, especially now, that she's a driving motivation for your photography?
She's a driving motivation for my photography and my poetry. She always knew that I was a great writer. She'd always tell me, hey, buddy, your cousin's birthday, write something sweet on Facebook. I'm like, what do I got to write? I'm going to see her later. Like, we're going to her birthday party. She's like, yeah, but you're a great writer, so just write it. And I was like, oh, I guess. So she's a driving force in both my photography and both my poetry. You know, when it comes to my poetry, a lot of the poems that I write, the sad ones, the painful ones, come from me missing her. 4 years ago, my mother passed away due to heart complications. So from 2016 to the beginning of 2019, so the end of 2018, for those 3 years, I suffered through depression, you know, and everybody's depression is different. You know, I always had a smile on my face. Yeah, sure. But I was always going out constantly. I was drinking. I was getting drunk driving. It was horrible. It was a horrendous time in my life. You know, it was up until at the beginning of 2019 when I took my working out serious. I started hitting the gym and I took it serious. I took my photography and my poetry serious. It was then that I realized, wow, you know, I suffered through depression. And so losing her, I changed it from being painful. I turned that pain into a driving force, into motivation, because she would not have wanted to see me suffer and waste my life away in Jack Daniels and Jim Beams, you know? So she's a big driving force. And whenever I write and whenever I take a picture, because it's moments like those when I take a picture that I know she's not here able to see it, but I know that she would have loved it. You know, same thing with my poetry. So that's why, like, eventually, I do plan on writing a poetry book, you know, and
I've been on him for that for like ever now. Man,
it's been years in the making. It'll come out one day, I promise you, and it'll be phenomenal. But yeah, so, you know, she's been a huge factor. She's been my motivation and my drive to write and to take photos, even to this day.
Yeah, and as you're saying that, man. So the thing is about Jose and I, like, we're best buds. Like, since 6th grade, me and this guy were hanging out. Like, he still remembers the chubby kid with the cloud shirt. It was a like a don't smoke type shirt, going to his street, knocking on his door, asking where Jose was. And I think your grandma was the one that answered, right? Or was your mom? And so she was it's like, no, he's outside playing. I was like, okay. And I'm walking away, and you're like, kid Jose, like, hey. And I turn around. But, like, man, Jose's always been such a really creative person, man, and very good at heart. Like, and his mom was serious about who he hanged out with. Like, you had to get interviewed to be his friend.
She was so close to asking your social security number just so she can do a background check to make sure you were clean.
And your boy was like 11. Right? And so I remember that, and just me and him, man, we would just play a lot of video games, and we would take them very seriously. Like, I remember we played Dynasty Warriors Gundam, and we created a map of the level so we can create a game plan to win, because it was so hard. We just made up our own games all the time. And remember, all right, this is about to be a throwback.
What, the Gears of War?
Well, that was really cool itself.
Okay,
so this is why I don't know so much about his artistic side, because I know a lot about his gaming side. We had a lot of cool moments in gaming. You want to share the Gears of War moment?
So in Gears of War, we were playing, and we were going against, I don't know if we were playing online with each other or what.
It was at Kenny's house.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a 2 TV setup.
Oh, okay, yeah. So we were playing at our boy Kenny's house, and we had the cable that connected the two Xboxes so we could system link. Well, it was 2v2, so we said, perfect. Me and Brandon are going to play, and we're going to win. We didn't talk for the entire match. We heard in one room them yelling out, yo, he's over there, no, he's back here. And in our room, dead silence. You could have dropped a pen, and that pen would have been the loudest thing in the room, because we didn't talk, but we shot and we were killing them. We were like, we were winning the match.
Yeah, and the thing was, it wasn't like us going off on our own. We were on the same wavelength. Like, we were operating as if we were communicating. It was just like the coolest, awesome moment that we were able to have in that, and we just felt so legit after that. And so it's, there's a lot of cool memories there, and I think it does speak to the kind of people that we are today, because moving forward with that, even like the Gaia Online, that's the thrill right there.
God,
you invited me to like a forum, and in the forum it was like a zombie apocalypse one, and that was like a really big moment, I think, for me too, like as a writer, because like we would make our own characters, and in this forum we had like write bios for the characters, and we were like in
like 6th grade, 7th grade. We were like, we had to create. So we role played on this thing. So it was Gaia. You can go into chat rooms and talk to other people. You made your little avatar. You can play some games. You can buy like stuff or whatever online. Cool. It was fun. But then there was these forums, and then there was these role playing forums. I was heavily involved in these role playing forums because I like storytelling. So you can join a role play, and you would make a character, give them a backstory, give them a personality and stuff, and then you would just, it was funny because every time you would type something in the forum, you'd wait 5 minutes, you'd hit refresh, and somebody would add something new, and you kept the story going. And it was golly, that is so old. That is, Jesus. You know, recently I thought about going back into Gaia. I gotta figure out what my Gaia login is so I can go back in. Because I want to see how things are, you know, how things change. If I find out that the thing shut down, I'm going to cry. I'm going to lose a part of me. So
Yeah, like that was a computer thing. Like we were on that. That was our social media, like big time. Yeah, there was MySpace and stuff, but that one was like the fun stuff. And now that, yeah, I get you. That was, but I'm really into storytelling too, and that was so much fun, like creating scenes, because we're like directors. Like we were creating the scenes of like how the zombies came in, how we fought them, and like it was like those video games where you choose like dialogue or your choice, and the game kind of like does that awkward pause for a little bit before the next person continue, like before you choose your decision, and it's kind of like that where you have to wait a few minutes for the next person to follow up. So that was really, really dope. And you talked about how your mom was a driving force. You talked about how you took gym seriously, right? You talked about how that's when you're like, you know what, I got to shift something. And I remember that season of your life because, you know, before that, man, a lot of people would ask, hey, how Jose's doing? How's Jose doing? I'm like, I don't even know, because I was in college in South Florida. You're in Central Florida, and we're both really busy with our lives. And it was tough because, again, me and you, like, you couldn't see Jose without Brandon. You couldn't see Brandon without Jose. So they were like, they see me, and it's like 2 seconds of just seeing me. It's not, hi, Brandon. It's, where's Jose? Like, that's just how it was. And so it was just, it hurt a little bit, and it was misfortunate. It was unfortunate to be like, man, like, I really wonder how my guy's doing, man, my homie. Like, I wonder how Jose's going. And I remember I was in maintenance at the church I was working at prior, and I was vacuuming the sanctuary. And then I had a moment where I was just thinking about Jose, and I was praying for him. And I was like, you know what? F this. Like, and I texted him. I was like, tonight, phone call. He's like, is everything good? I said, it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then,
yeah, that's true.
And then he's like, all right, bet, what time to talk? And he's like, and he said 7. So then you called me at 7 p.m. and I asked you, like, how's it going, right? And you said same crap, different day, which you say, like, would say every single time I would ask you. And then I was like, exactly, Jose, your life is crap. And so I just went off on him, and I just told him, like, dude, like, what happened to that guy that, again, the Gears of War guy, the Gundam guy, the guy that we would go on walks to school and middle school, like, just all this different stuff. And like, dude, you're creative, you have these abilities, what happened to your poetry, your photography? And I felt like God really just used that moment alongside with everything else that was happening on his end to really, like, hey, let's get out of this rut, you know, let's get out of this life writer's block, this life block that's like hindering you. With that being said, because, like, you know, all these elements come together and it brought you out of that rut. Does your poetry speak to your photography? Like, how do those different art mediums, I guess, interact with each other?
It's more so interact. It's hard because, like, I never really, like, based my photography off what poem I'm gonna write, or I've never written a poem based off a photo that I'm gonna write. It's just more so I want to give, like, a picture that kind of, like, I guess, invokes an emotion for a poem. It's more so both of those are like my outlets to relieve stress or to calm myself, to be my true self. You know, there are 3 pillars in my life right now that help me stay sane, which is the gym, the photography, and poetry. Now there's a 4th one coming along, gaming, because your boy's back on Call of Duty, so I'm leveling up. We're getting there. But yeah, so those 2 together, they're very much, it's hard. I've never really actually thought about ever having them, like, coexist. They exist, they just don't, like, depend on one another. They're both their, like, own single form of art that I use, and I craft myself in their own respective ways. You know, I want myself to be a certain photographer, I want myself to be a certain poet. So for that to come, I mean, I've thought about it, you know, like, I thought about when I write the book eventually coming in 2025.
Hopefully not that late.
Yeah, I know that. I thought about, you know, putting pictures in the poetry book, you know, but I've always thought, and I've reached out, but it's always, you know, the ways of life gets in the way. I've thought about, you know, having, like, people paint or people create stuff, which I've reached out to you to help me come up with a couple ideas for Like if I write a poem, hey, can you draw something based off the story or what you feel or what you interpret of this poem? So I think art for me, more so drawing, painting, goes a long way with the poetry, and the photography is just its own thing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I get it. I get it. Especially as guys, I can't say that word. Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize.
There we go. Insert that word. I feel as us men, we do that. So it's in boxes. We think in boxes, and women, it's like spaghetti or just like wild wires where everything connects everything. So I can see that how you could put like poetry in this box, photography in that box. But with those boxes, you set goals in the past for your photography, such as being featured on an account, have someone use one of your photos as a screensaver. Have you set familiar goals for your writing?
Honestly, my writing, not so much, because a lot of my writing just stays private. A lot of my writing stays solely for me or the people that I share it with, but it's never been to post onto social media. A goal for my writing would obviously be the book. You know, that's the number one big goal. I would want my photography. I would want my poetry book to have a short story in the middle with characters, a story, you know, stuff like that. That's kind of like the goal for my poetry. It's so hard. Poetry, photography, I'm like, they both starts with P's and Y's. I'm over here like, it's hard. I'm like, Jesus. But yeah, no, for poetry, it's to write a book, to have a book published, sold out there in the world. And even if I sell 17 copies, those are going to be the best 17 copies I've sold, because I just want, my goal is for when I publish a book, people to buy it. Whether it be 5 people, whether it be 100 people, whether it be the best selling book. I don't know. All I know is I just want people to buy the book. You know, I want people to read the words and be like, wow, you know, he was in a dark place when he wrote this. This was his dark times. And then see the transition of my writing and be like, wow, you know, he's changed. You can tell the stories behind his writings. They changed for better, not so much dark, depressing stuff. So, you know, that's mainly my goal with poetry.
Gotcha. All right. So the next question is, how do you plan on developing your craft? So talk about one of the P words and then the other P word.
All right. So for poetry, it's to change the style in which I'd write. It goes from basic stanzas to the prose, which is like so much like a paragraph. It's like you write a paragraph, but words don't have to rhyme, because everybody's misconception of poetry is it has to rhyme. So the cat in the hat sat on the mat with Pat. Like, no, that is poetry, but that's not the only definition. That's not the only version of poetry. You have haikus, which is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. You have prose, which is a paragraph. It's sort of like free writing in a way where it's just you write. It doesn't have to have a proper structure. It can be however long as you want it to be. And yeah, that's what it is. To get better, I want to delve in more to like different styles. So I want to focus, and I'm gonna eventually focus on haikus and learn how to write haikus and study that. And when it comes to photography, I want to get better at portraits. I want to learn how to do portraits. I want to get better with people. I want to get better with taking pictures, and then doing like concept for photography. These words, man, they're just messing up my mind right now, dude. And do these concepts for photography. Tell a story with a picture. You know, I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories, so I have 2 outlets to tell my stories. It can either be through writing or it can be through pictures. So when it comes to the picture side, I'm gonna do pictures and words. That's how I'm gonna describe photography and poetry. Pictures and words, people. So with pictures, I want to come up with concepts like, hey, here's a story, here's 5 pictures, this is the story you're getting. And then when it comes to writing, I want to have, you know, different forms of writing. So it's just now more so of learning the different styles, which means a lot of YouTube and research to understand both haikus and portraits.
Well said. Sorry guys, we're in a hotel, so there's like a lot of weird sounds.
Yeah, there was like something like it sounded like somebody was sawing through something. I don't know what, but that was weird. I don't like that.
All right, if it doesn't pick it up, I'll cut this off.
Yeah, right.
All right. I have one more question for you. And then like a little outro thingy. How has faith influenced your craft?
It wasn't easy at first. I'm not going to lie to you. It wasn't easy. After everything that happened to my mom, I lost faith there for a little bit. But faith has influenced my craft, because you got to realize that you can only do so much before you have to put faith in what God has given you the ability to do. You know, he gave me these gifts. He gave me these abilities. And it's easy to self-doubt yourself. It's easy to doubt yourself and be like, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. But no, you know, God gave me the abilities to take good pictures. God gave me the eye, the creative mind to come up with these pictures, to come up with these words. And so, you know, I have to have faith that, you know, what I'm saying, whatever message that I'm saying, it's not only that I'm speaking for myself, but I'm speaking from him, because he knows that somebody else might need these words to hear. Or if somebody is learning to do, you know, pictures, if they're learning how to take pictures, that he gave me the ability to teach someone, to mentor them. As I also blessed me with Sandesh, who he used to help me become a better photographer. You know, it's funny because it doesn't have to be direct contact faith. You know, it can be faith around you. It can be him providing you with stuff around you, not directly to you. You know, he you know, faith influenced me by giving me the passion to catch up to where Sandesh is. You know, that was a big thing. So I believe that, like, I mean, everything you do, really, faith is involved and God is involved. You know, it's more so, how much do you want to see it? How much do you want to acknowledge it? And how much do you want to truly believe it? Because some people be like, yeah, he did this, but, you know, I put in 95% of the work. And it's like, no, it's 50-50. You know, he gives you the tools and the abilities, right? You just got to have faith that you thank him for giving you those abilities. A lot of people be like, I'm the best, I teach myself. Like, no, I mean, he could have given me the ability to be athletic, and I still would have thanked him, and I still would have been like, you know, you're helping me do this. You know, this is you are living through me, and you are helping me touch someone's life. You know, it's funny because, quick story time. I was at a concert, which I missed concert because it's COVID-19. I miss concerts so much. Went to a concert. It was for my favorite band called Issues. They have a song called Disappear, Remember When, where the lead singer sings about how he was in love with someone and she was killed in a drunk driving accident. And so he gave up. He was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to sing anymore. Like, I can't do music. But then God gave him the sign and was like, no, like, your band just got signed to a record company. You're going to write songs, and your songs are going to touch people's lives. And so he was singing that song, and obviously that song resonated with me more now because of the loss of my mother. I'm standing there, you know, Joey and Sandesh behind me, we're singing, and next thing I know, a dude right next to me breaks down crying. And I was like, oh man. In my head I was like, oh, don't just ignore it, let him cry, let him have his moment. Cool. Nope, God didn't let that happen for me. So I, you know, touched the guy and I was like, hey man, you know, it's gonna be all right. And so he looks at, he was like, he's crying or whatever, and I think his girlfriend was there, and she said, oh, he lost his mother like a couple months ago. This was a year after I lost mine. So I was like, well, what better person to be next to you? What better person to be listening the song to? So I gave him a hug, and I told him, hey, I lost my mother too. You know, I get it. It sucks, but, you know, have faith that they're in a much better place than we are. You know, she's up there looking down, smiling and being proud of you, and that she's always going to live in your heart no matter what. And so it was a cool little moment that God used me for, and I was like, wow, you know, it was touching. You know, a moment that I could have easily broken down and been upset about. I was like, no, that'd be selfish. Let me be selfless, and let me do what God has given me the strength to do and be there for someone else who's suffering through the same thing that I did. So
That was nice. And then it's crazy because you said that was a year after you lost your mom, and you were still battling with stuff. And so that goes and that's one example of that. God can use you no matter what state you're in. You know, no matter what position you're at, no matter what bad habits you have, God can still utilize you to be a blessing to someone else. You don't even have to be a believer. And that's shown even throughout Scripture. God has used people who weren't on the side of Christ or on the side of God or whatever that looks like to still make a good difference or to fulfill his will. And you mentioned earlier, like, God has blessed you with these resources, right? And I agree, like, you use what you have and you have what you need. You know, like, I've been filming or recording these podcasts in a closet, right? Because with my research that I've done, right, I found out that, you know, that helps with audio, with dampening sounds to get clear audio and stuff. And so it's It's out there, and it's just taking advantage. And you didn't have the right equipment to take a picture of the moon, but you utilized what you did have, and your creativity, your problem-solving skills came together to execute that. And Jose, I want to end it off on an encouraging note. You don't know I did this because you didn't get to hear the interview I did with Elmer, Mr. Glue. When I interview people, I research the meaning of their first and middle name, and then I'm going to speak truth over their life because it is true. So your name, Jose, right, means God will increase. Huh. And so it's crazy because the enemy, right, when I say the enemy, I'm referring to Satan and his demons and our flesh and anything else that comes against us, would want you to believe otherwise. And when you lost your mother, it was that. Mm-hmm. God's not increasing jack. He's taking away. Yeah. And so... But the bounce back's real, and now you can see God increase. I remember when I was doing, I was cleaning the SU housing, like the house. You gave me that phone call where you had that epiphany, and then that's when things started shifting. And this was after like weeks of us phone calling every single Sunday after that initial phone call while I was doing maintenance. And ever since then, things started just like falling in place, bro. You know, you and Desiree, you and all these different things just started like coming in clutch. And I'm like, let's go. Like, I was so hyped. And then I remember you prayed out the phone call, and it was just it was a blessing to me. Like, it gave me motivation to scrub even harder in that kitchen because it was monthly house check, and your boy was definitely not trying to spend $75.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah, it was the last one, so that's what was a big deal. So God will increase, and I believe God will continue to increase. He'll bless you with a family. He'll bless you with a home. He's going to bless you with, with a following because he knows that you give him the honor in that, And your middle name, right, Antonio, means priceless. And so you are priceless. Like, you have worth, you have value, and people who have the opportunity and the blessing to be your friend, they know that. Because if you weren't priceless, I wouldn't initiated that phone call. I wouldn't really care about trying to reconnect with you. Right? If you weren't priceless, like people who know you, your coworkers are probably like nodding their head like, yep. The people listening who do know you, like, yeah, Jose's a good guy. And even when you were going through all that crap, and dude, you talk different, you just behave different. You can tell that you were just struggling. And when people would ask me how you were, I was like, he's not doing so well, but you can tell deep down inside he's still a good person. Right? They're still, like, despite all those bad habits and bad character traits, it didn't affect the fact that God still saw you as priceless, that you had worth, and in those seasons you were probably a really big anti-hero, but God still saw the hero in you. So I just want to end it with that word of encouragement to you, man.
Thanks, man. I was not ready for that, but I appreciate that, man.
Of course. And so for those who are listening, if you got to take a break from things, take a break, just as Jose was saying, and come right back. But in that break, just don't forget the question of, would you like to continue? Jose, thank you so much, and have a blessed day, everybody.
Thank you, man. You have a good one.